Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Armen Vartanian, the head of workplace at LinkedIn. And he'll be telling us what's going on with LinkedIn and some of the findings that it's figuring out on hybrid work and remote work. So Armen, can you tell me a little bit more about the most recent LinkedIn Workforce Conference Index on this topic, Workplace Conference Index?
Yeah, so specifically at LinkedIn, we've got a hybrid policy that's predicated around trust. It's foundational value for us, specifically trust and care, and rooted within that is this idea that relationships is really important. Relationships matters is how we define it. And trust is, I think, paramount in today's world to ensure that there's a successful hybrid strategy in place for organizations like LinkedIn. Specifically one that is not rooted in a return to office mandates that so many other companies, I think, are having a struggle right now in trying to drive the right level of engagement with their workforce around how they work. And the trust aspect of ensuring that that as an employer, we trust our employees to do the right thing as it relates to where the location is that works best for them and their teams, is not just one directional. It's not just focused from the employer to employee perspective, but it's also reciprocal. Employees, there needs to be a shared understanding and a shared responsibility between employees to employers around this notion of social capital and the importance social capital plays in creating deeper cross-functional, cross-organizational relationships that is going to be very important for organizations to succeed in navigating this new world of a more flexible type of work arrangement for employees.
So tell me a little bit more about the term social capital and how you would differentiate that from culture.
Yeah, good question. Social capital specifically is this network of relationships among people who live and work in a company to function effectively. Culture is a little bit more rooted in how process gets done throughout an organization, the shared norms of a company, for instance. What we found through some McKinsey studies is that engagement is 50%. Employees are 50% more engaged when there is the presence of social capital. And we know that there's deeper relationships to be had when employees are building relationships in person versus virtually. And the downstream implications of social capital is that you get greater retention, greater engagement, and with relationships that obviously leads to productivity.
That makes sense to me. Now, I helped 23 companies by now transition to hybrid work and remote work. And one of the important things about social capital I've been finding is that there's a difference between employees who have been at the company for a while versus junior employees. The senior employees who have been experienced employees who have built up a network of relationships within the company, they feel that it's fine for them to just come to the office maybe one day a week to cultivate and maintain those pre-existing relationships, maybe build some new relationships occasionally. But junior employees don't have that social capital. So let's talk a little bit about your perspective on what should be the difference, if any, from your perspective, on how often these two group cohorts should be coming to the office, given this importance of social capital.
Yeah, very, very good differentiation. I think first and foremost, across the organization, employees crave social interactions. We are a human being. We're social creatures. It's the reason why we've returned to restaurants and bars and
Sure.
gone to travel, right? 76% of our employees want to come back to our offices for informal interactions. There's a Microsoft Work Trend Index study that has been done where 85% of the workforce are motivated to come back to rebuild relationships. So I think across the company, regardless of tenure, there's a desire to come in and build deeper relationships with each other. But to your point, taking the view from the current state that we're in, over the past 3 years, effectively, the majority, 55% approximately, of our employees have started at LinkedIn. It's a similar trend that we see with other companies that have, considering the growth of some of our some of our organizations in our industry. And again, to your point, it's really important for those individuals to build those deep, lasting relationships across organizations so that they can work more effectively longer term during their tenure.
Now, one of the challenges I've been finding in other companies is that the junior employees want to build relationships, but senior employees, because they already have those relationships, they feel it's fine to, like I said, come in maybe once a week. And the junior employees, that's a challenge for them to build relationships with more senior people. They tell me when I do focus groups that, and I was literally doing one this morning, that once they meet a senior employee, an experienced employee, they feel fine reaching out to that person remotely. But before they actually meet them in person, it's really tough for them to reach out remotely and have those connections remotely. And what I've been thinking about and working with those companies on, and what I found has worked well, is creating deliberate mentoring programs that provide opportunities for senior employees to mentor junior employees and meet them at the same time sometimes. So maybe having one senior employee take 5 junior employees out to lunch, maybe co-work by 5 junior employees in the same area for a couple of hours to connect with them, answer their questions, and so on. So creating structured programming that would enable, that solves the problem. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts about mentoring as one way of solving the problem of junior employees building those social connections?
I think mentoring is important, but I think there needs to be intentionality and predictability at the root of all of these programs that we've got that's founded in flexibility. And I think it gets back to this idea where cross-organizational norms are really important. And that's going to lead to some level of value proposition for the employees. I think regardless of whether it's mentoring or other programs to drive social capital in the office, team-based, innovative, collaborative types of work sessions, employees that decide to come into the office on any given day want to ensure that when they're there, they're getting value from that experience. Sure. They want to know if they get in their car, they're going on public transit, that they're there to interact with other people. Our spaces, we develop many types of, flexible types of environments throughout the office to accommodate a bunch of different work habits, but our spaces are nothing without our employees. And that's what really drives the experience. So our at a higher level, our focus has been twofold around this idea, and it's really centered around this equation that I've been giving a lot of thought. And the equation is pretty simple. It's the numerator, which is employee behavior, and the denominator, which is the supply of space. And we've been very thoughtful about how to constrain supply to drive more interactions with folks, and that's a very positive effect on our attendance patterns and the experience folks have had in our offices.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. What have you done in the office? And I know LinkedIn has had some serious innovative changes in its office space to facilitate collaboration. So what have you done to do that? Dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah, so from the supply perspective, just simply by constraining supply, we look at a number of core metrics centered around utilization, planning ratios, an experience index that's a bottom-up index to measure the experience employees have when they're in our space, but simply by constraining supplies and forcing more people in less amount of space, we've actually driven up attendance. So organically, again, this idea that employees want to have that social interaction, we've seen an increase in attendance since constraining supplies. Our offices in our largest 6 core markets around the world are all experiencing utilization levels that are greater than that of prior to the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Seeing 70 to 75% utilizations on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays in some of our largest markets.
That's really interesting. So other clients, one of the challenges, one of the things we've been working on and that we've had challenges with is establishing something like a common day in the office, once a week to address the problem of coordination, of having critical mass of people. And what we've been finding is that when we do something like a one common day in the office, there tends to be lots of people in the office, and they find that the meeting rooms are booked that they plan to use. The huddle rooms are booked, soundproofed rooms that they wanted to have with client calls that they can't use. So they're taking calls at their desks and they're disturbing others, and they can't get spaces that they would need. So how are you solving for that sort of problem where you would have too many people coming in for the amount of space and people will be kind of overcrowding each other?
Right. So we're constantly looking at capacity. I mean, the short answer is we're constantly looking at utilization capacity to accommodate. But I think the longer answer to this is that organizational norms are very important. And it's not just around the days folks come together to interact with each other, but it's the types of activities that happen when folks are together. Otherwise, you're going to get this kind of sporadic microculture of type of work that ends up happening within the office or remotely. You may come in and have an experience that is not ideal, coming in and sitting in a video conferencing office all day because the remainder of your team is not in the office. So what you want to do is create those, again, cross-organizational norms. That's very, paramount to develop the social capital, but it also creates a better experience overall in the type of work that you're doing with your teammates on any given day that you happen to be in the office or remotely.
And one of the things that I find that people need to learn is to do different types of work when remotely and when they're coming to the office. And especially managers, I find managers struggle with this. They don't know, from my experience, they have a difficult time managing people when those people are remote. For example, they find that they tell me that, well, people aren't handing in tasks at the kind of timelines I want. I have difficulty getting hold of them. And I tell them that, look, you're the manager. You're supposed to figure out coordination. It's not the worker who's procrastinating or not available. You need to have clear expectations and you need to coordinate effectively so that you know where workers are. Set a common hour, for example, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., where everyone's supposed to answer their Slack messages or Microsoft Teams messages within 30 minutes. Someone's supposed to answer their email within an hour or something like that. Have an emergency system, text someone if you need to get a hold of them quickly. So how do you solve the problem of teaching managers how to manage effectively in this increasingly more remote hybrid world?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things immediately come to mind is the organizational norms that companies can create by being more predictable on the days folks come in and not leads to intentional investing, right? Without it, it's a bit chaotic. It's like a company that operates with an irregular heartbeat. And being intentional, then you can invest in the right areas to amplify the right types of behaviors. If you knew the organizational norm of the cadence of folks coming in versus not, or where we're hiring from and what the expectation of our employees are that are near an office versus in a market that we don't have offices, again, you can invest in the right learning and development programs. You can invest in the right technology to, maybe ubiquitous technology systems to drive ease and frictionless collaboration. You can invest in the right types of cultural programs. At LinkedIn, we have an in-day that we allocate a day a month that's centered around our values and culture. to help amplify that and strengthen that across the organization. We've got, from a norms perspective, reconnect days that happen on a regular cadence too, just so that we can bring it's a formal re-onboarding of sorts across the entire organization. So again, I think norms is really important here, and you can then invest in the right types of programs to amplify the right types of behaviors for your employees.
Excellent. And so as we're wrapping up, what do you think would be the future of hybrid work at LinkedIn and more broadly? But you're specializing in LinkedIn, so you can focus on that.
Yeah, I think hybrid, I hate to say it's the future of work because it's already here. I think there's refinements to be had, and that's what we're doing at LinkedIn. We're constantly iterating and learning and going through this process, whether it's from how we work and the workflows that are changing due to technological advancements, to the types of spaces that we're designing to create spaces that are conforming to how employees work in the varied ways that's gonna be done within our environments.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Armen. That was very, very helpful.
Thank you, Gleb. Nice chatting with you.
Nice chatting with you too. And thank you to the listeners and viewers for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you check this out and leave a review. It helps others discover the show, and it helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.